If you woke up today with no desire to move, if your body remained rooted in stillness, not from fatigue, but from something deeper, something nameless, Carl Jung would not tell you to push harder. He would tell you to listen. This is not a weakness. It is not laziness. It is not a failure of will. What you're feeling is the soft murmur of the soul, speaking in symbols far older than logic, asking for your attention. You may have spent years calling it procrastination. Others might have scolded you, urging you to discipline your way through it. But Jung understood that what looks like stagnation on the surface often conceals a sacred message rising from your unconscious. When the outer world demands motion and yet every part of you resists, this may not be dysfunction. It may be the beginning of transformation. This feeling, this pull toward nothingness, is not always decay. Sometimes it is a cocoon. It is the psyche rebelling quietly, refusing to perform a life that no longer fits your inner truth. Beneath the surface of your apathy, something is shifting. Something is stirring, and in the stillness that follows, the real voice of your being emerges. In the next few moments, you'll be invited to descend into that silence, to understand why your soul sometimes asks you to stop, and to discover how surrendering to this pause can awaken a deeper fire within you. Because what you call laziness might actually be the chrysalis of your next evolution. If you've ever carried the weight of guilt for not doing enough, or judged yourself for not keeping up with what the world expects of you, now is the time to look again. Your energy is not broken. It is rerouting. And this inner resistance may be the most honest signal your soul has ever sent you. Prepare to see your stillness in a new light, the beginning, not the end, of your becoming. Carl Jung once said that hurry is not of the devil, it is the devil. In a world addicted to acceleration, we have come to equate movement with meaning, busyness with value, and exhaustion with worth. From the moment we open our eyes, we are conditioned to run, to chase goals, deadlines, and expectations. We are praised for pushing through fatigue, rewarded for ignoring our inner signals, and even admired for sacrificing our well-being on the altar of achievement. But no one tells us what it means when the body begins to rebel, when the soul starts to whisper what the ego refuses to hear. I can't keep going like this. And so we resist the stillness. We panic when our energy slows, when our motivation vanishes, when we no longer feel the urge to strive. We call it laziness. We label it depression. We diagnose and medicate what may, in truth, be a sacred pause, a psychological winter that asks us to stop, not because we are failing, but because something deeper is awakening. Jung saw this withdrawal not as dysfunction, but as a critical phase of individuation, the soul's hidden preparation for transformation. In the language of the psyche, silence is not empty, it is full of unseen activity. He called this incubation, a period where the unconscious reorganizes our inner life, digests what we've refused to feel, and begins to reshape the structures that no longer serve us. To the external world, it may look like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, something sacred is stirring. Something vital is being remembered. It is a descent, not into darkness as punishment, but into depth as preparation. You are not breaking down, you are being broken open. The modern mind resists this deeply. Conditioned to seek visibility, productivity, and progress, we fear stillness. We fear what cannot be measured, explained, or proven. But the psyche does not obey the laws of capitalism or linear logic. It follows cycles, death and rebirth, descent and return, retreat and emergence. And when the soul grows weary of noise, when the inner world demands attention, It pulls us inward by any means necessary. Fatigue, disinterest, a strange emptiness, a sudden inability to do what once came easily. These are not malfunctions, they are messages. Your inner life is trying to get your attention. You may feel lost in this phase. You may wonder why your passion is gone, why you no longer resonate with the people or places that once defined you. The answer is simple but profound. You are outgrowing what no longer matches your becoming. Your mind may still cling to the old, but your soul is quietly rearranging the furniture of your life. And the body, so often dismissed, is not betraying you. It is protecting you. It is the vessel through which the soul speaks when the mind is too loud to listen. Jung believed that the body was not merely biological, it was symbolic, a living mirror of our unconscious processes. When it slows down, stiffens, aches, or refuses to move, it may be reflecting a deeper truth. Your psyche is tired of pretending. It no longer wants to uphold the image you've been forced to project. The persona has become too tight. The mask no longer fits. And so the body collapses, not in defeat, but in refusal, in rebellion, in truth. There is a sacred wisdom in this surrender, but it requires trust. It requires a shift in perception from seeing stillness as failure to seeing it as healing. What if this quiet phase is not a step backward, but a realignment? What if your soul is unlearning the noise so it can remember its own rhythm? Like a forest in winter, everything may appear barren on the outside, but underground, the roots are growing stronger. Nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. The energy has simply gone inward to restore what the outer world has depleted. So, if you find yourself tired of trying, unable to keep pushing, and confused by your own stillness, pause, listen. Honor the wisdom in your fatigue. Not every season is meant for blooming. Some are meant for burrowing, resting, and retreating. You are not failing, you are regenerating. And in this quiet, the deepest parts of you are remembering the way home. You are not meant to run forever. You are meant to awaken. Carl Jung recognized that what we often dismiss as laziness may, in fact, be the soul's most honest language. He named it sacred stillness, a mysterious inner silence that doesn't come from weakness, but from wisdom. Beneath the surface of our fatigue, he saw messages hidden in plain sight. Each form of this stillness is not a failure to try harder, but a refusal to keep betraying ourselves. What we call soul laziness is rarely a sign of laziness at all. It is the psyche's way of pulling us back from a life that no longer fits, back into alignment with who we really are. The first face of this stillness is the laziness of misalignment. This is the kind of tiredness that arrives not after doing too much, but from doing the wrong things for too long. You wake up and realize the meetings feel empty, the conversations feel forced, and your once burning passion for tasks and routines has quietly vanished. The joy you once felt is now replaced with a quiet dread. Jung understood this as the soul withdrawing its consent. When your outer life no longer reflects your inner truth, the psyche rebels. It refuses to power what feels false. In its quiet defiance, it whispers, "I will no longer lend energy to what is not aligned with who I am becoming." You may still show up on the outside, but the light has dimmed within. This isn't failure, it's a signal, a sacred pull to realign with your deeper purpose. The second form is the laziness of unmourned grief. This is the soul's exhaustion that comes not from the weight of today, but from the ache of unresolved yesterdays. A loss not fully honored, a goodbye never spoken aloud, the ending of a relationship, the fading of a dream, or the slow vanishing of an identity you once clung to. Grief, when unacknowledged, becomes a ghost that haunts the present, draining our vitality. Jung knew that when we do not take time to mourn, the unconscious holds vigil on our behalf. Your body may feel heavy because your soul is holding a candle for all that has been lost. And until you pause, until you feel and name the ache, life refuses to move forward. Fatigue is not failure. It is remembrance. It is the psyche saying, honor the ending, or you will never truly begin again. Then comes the laziness of emotional overload. Some people are wired to feel deeply. They absorb the moods of others, the weight of world events, and the suffering that floats through the collective air. Jung called them emotional sponges, people whose nervous systems take on more than they can process. For these sensitive souls, stillness is not indulgence, it is survival. Lying in bed, withdrawing, going quiet for a while, these are not signs of defeat, but rituals of purification. Silence becomes sacred medicine. It is how the soul rebalances itself after drowning in too much stimulation. Modern neuroscience may speak of cortisol levels, parasympathetic resets, and vagus nerve recovery, but Jung knew the truth long before. Science caught up. The soul needs rest to restore itself to coherence. The fourth is the laziness of life transition, the fatigue that arrives in the space between identities. It is not that you are lost, but that you are becoming. An old self is dissolving, but the new one has not yet taken shape. Jung called this the liminal space, a threshold where we no longer recognize ourselves, and yet something deeper stirs beneath the surface. It is a vulnerable time, a time when all the masks fall away, and all that remains is the raw material of who you are meant to become. Just as a snake must shed its skin and retreat to safety, you must protect this sacred in-between. This is why heroes in myth always disappear before they return. Before resurrection comes the descent, the cave, the desert, the night sea journey. Your exhaustion is not regression. It is your descent into the fertile unknown. Finally, there is the laziness of blocked creativity. This is not laziness at all, but the silent scream of the soul whose fire has nowhere to go. When your days are filled with tasks that dull your spirit, when practicality replaces passion, the soul begins to wither. Jung saw this as one of the most dangerous forms of suppression. Creative energy is meant to move, to dance, to dream. When it is stifled, it curdles. It turns inward and becomes apathy, heaviness, or disinterest. But even this is a signal, a flare. The soul is crying, "Do not waste me on things that do not matter." This exhaustion is not the end of energy. It is energy demanding to take a new direction. In each of these forms, the body is not your enemy. It is the unconscious in motion. It speaks through heaviness, through resistance, through the desire to retreat. Your tiredness is not a flaw to be fixed. It is an invitation to come home to yourself. Your stillness is not a failure to act, but a consecrated threshold, a psychic sanctuary where something ancient stirs beneath the surface. And beneath every moment of exhaustion, every hour of heaviness, there lies a question so primal it echoes through the ages. What part of me is asking to be born? This fatigue is not a void, it is a crucible. In the pause, the unconscious is not sleeping. It dreams through you. It weaves myth and memory into symbol and sensation, quietly shaping your inner world like lava cooling into the foundation of a new land. It is a sacred alchemy that requires darkness, pressure, and time, but the modern ego rebels against this invisible rhythm. It is addicted to acceleration, intoxicated by measurable gains. It seeks performance graphs, checkboxes, and outcomes. Yet, as Jung illuminated, the soul is not a machine. It is a wild ecosystem, and like every living system, it renews itself through cyclical phases: flourish, fall, restore. When your body calls you to stillness, it is not betraying you. It is delivering a message from the depths. Rest. I am working with you. When your energy disappears without warning, when your motivation goes quiet, when the drive you once had melts into silence, you are not being abandoned. You are being recalibrated. Jung understood that the very states we label as failure, confusion, or fatigue are often signs of the unconscious repositioning of your life's compass. These are not dead ends, but turning points. The psyche is not linear. It breathes in spirals. Every descent has its corresponding ascent, but only if we allow the descent to deepen us. This stillness is not emptiness. It is the exhale before the next inhale, a sacred still point that precedes transformation. And the true art, Jung said, is not to resist the stillness, but to listen to it like a language spoken without words. Yet, how often do we fight it? How many times have we judged ourselves for slowing down? How many times have we flooded our silence with noise, with screens, with endless doing, just to avoid facing the whisper of the soul? When we shame our stillness, we abandon the very wisdom that is trying to save us. Instead, Jung's path calls us to lean inward toward the silence and ask not, "What is wrong with me?" but rather, "What is trying to speak through me?" He called this sacred practice active imagination, a conversation between your conscious mind and the unseen figures that move behind your thoughts. But you don't need an expert or ceremony to begin. All it asks for is presence. When that heavy stillness returns, do not turn away. Pick up a pen. Let your hand move without censorship. Let your thoughts spill like water. Write the images, the fragments, the nonsense, the feelings that have no name. Let them all come. Jung discovered that in this unguarded stream of inner truth, the unconscious begins to speak. In between the lines, the images return. A doorway, a flame, a recurring phrase, something that pulls you gently toward it. These are not accidents. They are clues. The psyche speaks through patterns, symbols, and dreams that the rational mind cannot translate. But the soul understands. Begin to notice what returns, what cannot be ignored, what feels alive in the silence. Follow it like a thread. In those quiet hours, Jung believed we are given a compass, if only we are brave enough to stop and feel it. He proposed 3 sacred questions for this moment of pause. What am I protecting myself from? What in my life no longer serves my growth? Which version of me is longing to be born? These questions are not answered with logic. They are answered with sensation, a chill, a tear, a sudden image, a word that echoes. That is the soul speaking. And here lies the paradox. Sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is nothing at all. To let the silence teach you, to let the stillness stretch its arms across your life and invite you back into wholeness. Not by effort, but by allowing. Not by pushing forward, but by being still long enough to hear your own becoming. This quiet state you find yourself in, this so-called doing nothing, is not laziness. It is not a failure. It is not apathy. It is a sacred act of rebellion in a world addicted to performance. It is your soul's silent declaration, I choose to be, not to perform. In that choice, something holy stirs. To rest consciously is not to escape life, but to finally meet it, to meet yourself, in its deeper rhythm, a rhythm older than any calendar or clock. Just as the tides withdraw and the moon disappears behind shadow, so too does your energy retreat, not to vanish, but to return in another form. This rest, when embraced with awareness, becomes an act of radical self-trust. It is choosing to believe that even in stillness, something essential is happening within you. Nature itself has never rushed. The tree does not bloom every season. The bear does not question its hibernation. The soil needs winter as much as spring. And yet somewhere along the way, we were taught to override this sacred rhythm. We were conditioned to believe that stillness is wasted time, that pausing makes us irrelevant, that rest is indulgent or lazy. But what if the opposite is true? What if your stillness is the doorway to transformation? What if your fatigue is not asking for shame, but for reverence? Carl Jung called this deep internal process the alchemy of transformation, a sacred inner journey not unlike the mystical practices of ancient alchemists. Just as they placed raw matter into the dark vessel and waited, trusting that time, pressure, and mystery would turn it to gold, so must the soul be allowed to undergo its hidden work. In medieval alchemy, before anything precious could be formed, the substance had to enter a phase called nigredo, the black stage. It was a place of dissolution where what once was had to fall apart. It was uncomfortable, it was messy, it was necessary. And Jung saw this not as outdated symbolism, but as the very map of the human soul. He believed that true psychological transformation requires a descent into this very darkness, not a darkness to fear, but one to honor. Because it is only in this crucible of quiet, where the old self crumbles and the ego releases control, that the new self can begin to take shape. And just like the alchemical gold, this self is not constructed through striving, but revealed through surrender. So when you feel called to lie down, when your body no longer obeys the pressure to push forward, when the fire that once drove you dims, do not rush to reignite it. Instead, listen, rest. You may be in your own stage of nigredo, where what no longer serves you is gently dissolving. You are not broken, you are becoming. This is not regression, it is refinement. A deeper intelligence is at work beneath your tiredness. It is stripping away the roles, the masks, the over-identification with doing. It is inviting you to come home to being. To rest in this way is a sacred participation in life's truest rhythm, growth, stillness, and rebirth. The world may not reward it, the mind may not always understand it, but the soul knows. And when you rest not as escape, but as sacred surrender, you begin to feel the subtle pulse of something ancient moving through you. A quiet clarity, a gentleness returning, a deeper self waking up beneath the self you were taught to be. In that stillness, you are not doing nothing, you are becoming someone new. There may come a morning, quiet, unremarkable to the outside world, when you wake and feel the shift. Nothing around you has changed, yet everything feels strangely new. The colors seem sharper, the air feels softer. A stillness inside you has broken open, not with noise, but with clarity. This is how the unconscious speaks when its incubation is complete. It does not make announcements, it offers subtle invitations. You begin to dream again, not just at night, but during the day. The images that once blurred now feel alive. You feel something returning to you that was never truly gone, energy, but not the kind that pushes or performs. It is the energy of spring awakening underground, moving gently before it bursts forth. It is natural, unforced, like a forest remembering its rhythm after a long winter. The psyche is always listening to life at a depth the conscious mind cannot always access, and when the soul is ready, it whispers, "Now, move." But move not as you once did, chasing a world that never let you rest. Move with patience. Move with reverence. For just as the seed does not bloom on command, your becoming cannot be rushed. The soul follows seasons that do not appear on a calendar. It needs its own time, its own silence, its own return. Yet this inner rhythm remains foreign to the culture we live in. We have built a world that glorifies acceleration. Progress is measured by productivity. Worth is confused with output. We are trained to applaud constant motion and to fear stillness as regression. We are told to optimize every moment, to fill every pause, to chase every goal. But what if the soul cannot be optimized? What if your deepest transformations occur not in the chase, but in the pause? The greatest awakenings in human history were not born in meetings or deadlines. They rose from silence, from slowness, from solitude. Consider Newton sitting under a tree, not striving, but simply observing. Consider Buddha, not striving for enlightenment, but surrendering beneath the Bodhi tree until it found him. Consider Christ retreating into the desert, meeting not applause, but silence. And Jung himself, alone in his lakeside tower in Bollingen, building by hand, reflecting by firelight, allowing the unconscious to speak in dreams and stone and water. These moments were not accidents. They were seasons of psychic ripening. They remind us that true insight is not demanded, it is received. And it arrives only when the ego steps aside long enough for the soul to surface. So when you feel energy returning after a long season of stillness, trust its quiet momentum. Do not rush to explain it. Do not demand that it produce something. Let it unfold as it must. Like morning light that does not ask permission to rise, your renewal will not come all at once, but in waves, in breath, in steps. You may feel a pull to create again, to connect again, to move, but differently, more slowly, more soulfully, and this time, not from the need to prove your value, but from the joy of expressing what you've discovered in your dark season. This is not a return to the old self, it is the emergence of the true self, the one you buried beneath schedules and expectations, the one who waited patiently through your winter, the one that does not need applause to know it is enough. When your energy rises again, let it rise from within, like spring returning to its roots, silent and unstoppable. And remember, it is not the world outside that confirms your growth. It is the quiet knowing inside that says, you have changed. Each of them, Newton, Buddha, Christ, Jung, retreated into silence, listened to the quiet language of the soul, and returned not diminished, but transfigured. Stillness was not a detour on their path. It was the origin of their clarity. In a world that worships momentum and achievement, to pause is a radical act. To choose alignment over applause is to awaken to your own rhythm in the face of relentless expectation. Jung once said that the wisest among us are not those who run the fastest, but those who know when to stop. For it is in that sacred pause that the self speaks, softly at first, but undeniably. Rest, then, is not weakness, it is reverence. It is a holy act of remembering what you are beneath the layers of doing. While society demands forward motion, your soul may be calling for depth. And in that stillness, modern science and ancient mysticism now agree. Something powerful is happening. Neuroscience tells us that the brain's default mode network becomes active during rest, connecting memories, emotion, and insight into patterns we cannot consciously access. The soul weaves meaning while the body lies still. The unconscious begins to rewrite your story, not through effort, but through surrender. So perhaps the longing to lie down is not laziness at all. Perhaps it is a sacred interruption. a whisper from within that says, "This life no longer fits who you are becoming." It is your psyche slowing you down, not to stop you, but to protect you, to turn you inward so you may recalibrate. From this view, exhaustion is not failure. It is truth breaking through. It is your soul asking you to be honest about what is no longer aligned, and when that familiar heaviness returns, do not reject it. Welcome it like a wise teacher. Thank you for showing you what your ego could not, for the soul does not crave stagnation, it craves sincerity. It asks not for endless hustle, but for truth, quiet, inconvenient, and real. And to hear that truth, you must sometimes mute the entire world, even your own mind. So rest. Listen. Let the silence speak, because there is a new self forming in the dark. And when it is ready, you will not have to chase the next chapter. It will rise, as dawn does, slowly and without permission. If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.